Hi, I'd like to explain navigating through the concepts and theories. I wanted to express how I appointed some of the concepts and theories of leadership to a real life scenario. I would like to illustrate the scenario, which will demonstrate the process in which leaders take on a task and how different leaders emerge, as well as followers develop follower skills and leadership skills. I will bring an awareness to the observer of the simultaneous transactions between various leaders and followers. In this case, I'd like to discuss a scenario. Steve's daughter is a high school senior and on the prom committee. The group of seniors is having little luck deciding on the way to raise money for the high school prom. The committee needs the money as soon as possible to put a deposit on the venue. Several ideas have been discussed. However, it just doesn't make any sense to get these done that quickly. So Sasha has a conversation with her father, who's in charge of a company. He has some ideas and suggests that she should do something that includes a whole family, in which case they would make more money, and they could include the family readiness group. His suggestion is a Halloween haunted house. However, there are a few obstacles. Here I have illustrated the prom committee, the leadership company, the family readiness group, and the battalion leadership. I bring in the battalion leadership because I believe that he is a servant leader. His approach to leadership is that he would like to expand on the community involvement from the unit. So he empowers his leaders at company level to do anything possible to build a cohesive unit between the communities and the leadership. I believe the Alpha Company leader was a transformational leader. He provides his followers, which are mid-level leaders, with what I visualize to be number one and number two of the four I's: idealized influence and inspirational motivation. Also, this is a transactional leadership based on contingent reward. So each person, as they work on the haunted house, will benefit. His soldiers will benefit because they will be getting time off. The prom committee benefits because they will be getting the funds for their Halloween venue. The family readiness group will benefit because they're volunteers, and their job is to put in hours to work with soldiers and family members and other community organizations. I have defined here just a quick schematic of how it worked before and after the breakdown of leadership. We have the subcommittees with leaders as well, the prom committee who has a leader, the committee leader, the FRG leader, the unit leader, and the high school who appointed the high school prom committee leadership. I believe the trait skills leader is not applicable in this scenario. I believe there may be some that were trait leaders, but not that I had visualized or noticed in this case. However, I did notice there were a lot of skills approach leaders here. The skills approach is defined by leaders that have primarily 3 skills. Based on the skill that they have is the level that they are working with. A skills leader can be anyone. Their individual attributes are matched with the competencies, which are then delivered by the outcome, whether the effective problem solving was done by utilizing the individual attributes by the leader. A lot of these are based on skills developed through previous efforts. Adaptive leadership, which I think is primarily the focus here, is getting to the balcony. So once it was determined that the case was they needed to raise money for a haunted house, they identified the challenge. They realized that it was a technical adaptive challenge in this case because they had had fundraisers before. They just had never collaborated with the high school students before. So deja vu, we know what to do, was just something that clicked in my head. The unit had done fundraisers before, just had never implemented or collaborated with the school. It was somewhat of a technical challenge and adaptive challenge combination because again, they did know what to do for fundraisers. However, they did not work with students. One other thing about adaptive leadership is the holding environment. And I think the holding environment in this case were the students and the leaders, in which case there was some interaction in that holding environment. It was new to the students to work with professional personnel, and yet it was not something that the personnel was too familiar with regard to the haunted house. Again, the haunted house, the company leadership defined that it was the company that was going to work with the prom committee. They identified the need, they found the venue, provided manpower and startup funds. They would be the sponsors and get permission from the command and collaborate with the committee to raise money. Alpha Company here is demonstrated as being fragmented. The leadership breaks down into further leadership, which breaks down into further leadership. In adaptive leadership, you will give the work back to the people, maintain discipline, attention, manage distress, and protect the voices from below. I believe the voices from below is the FRG in this case, the Family Readiness Group. They are the group that are the family members, the spouses, the children that provide other work, i.e. baked goods, drinks. They do kind of like the touchy-feely stuff, but they are the marginalized group in the military. In the leader-making phase, I think it starts in this case as the stranger phase. The students begin here. One-way influences, low-quality exchange, and it's very self-interested. Later on, towards the middle of the haunted house as the building started to take place, you saw some of the roles being changed and tested. You saw influences on the students where they were a little bit more proactive. They were a little bit more vocal, and they were thinking of each other when they didn't show up for the meetings or show up for the build. They were concerned for each other. The path goal theory, I think, also works here. You have the high school students, you have the prom committee leader, you have the Alpha Company commander leader and the FRG. They will work to get any obstacles out of the way to reach the goal. And based on the follower characteristics for either being supportive, participative, or achievement oriented, in which case I think it was pretty much all of the above in this case. You had leaders from different levels performing different things. You had the path goal leader, which I think was the middle management leader, which was helping. You had the participative, which were the smaller group, subgroup leaders. And then you had the directive, which was the older company commander. The situational approach could have also been applied here because you have a high directing, low supporting at the very beginning. And then you go in through coaching, supporting, and at the very end, you had low supporting and low directing. During the haunted house itself, everybody was kind of functioning, doing their own thing. Nobody was really concerned that somebody wasn't going to step up and do their job. The LMX, the leader member exchange, I think also worked in this scenario. In a different aspect, you had the out group, which was the FRG as a group, but basically only doing what was exactly necessary, no more, no less. There was no need to show up for the build of the haunted house. There was no need to show up for the review or the practicing of the haunted house. They basically just showed up at the end, collected money, sold cookies and beverages, did just what was necessary. Whereas the in-group in this case showed up early, stayed late, dressed up, tried the scenarios, etc. Here you include the membership dyad. The leader works with each individual, basically creating the in-group and the out-group. The behavioral theory is centered on the follower's approach. I think in this case, we had some behavioral aspects of it. You had at the beginning, the authority compliance manager, where the alpha company leader was at 9-1. He was basically telling everybody, this is what I believe you should be doing and what the parameters are. Then you had the 9-9, the team management, where you had all the sub leaders and the students, and they basically collaborated and got together as a group and decided what they were going to do. So you went from that to the follower, where I think they felt a little bit more empowered, and the followers here in this case figure that they can do better than the leader can do, but that's just, they become leaders themselves. In the authentic leadership, leaders become who they are through life events. In this case, I would say this is going on simultaneously with the FRG group. They are also based on having other students that have gone through fundraisers. They're familiar with what's going on. They lead by example. They motivate the followers. They unify the group. They do have a common purpose. And in the end, you have a high school prom committee that raised enough money through the haunted house and baked good sales, etc., to pay for the venue, the table decorations, and the catering. The prom committee decided that they would share this via report to the high school, to the next group, and to indicate how important it is to collaborate with a company, even if they feel a bit intimidated, that in the end, they will work with someone closer to their level and get the job done, meet their goal through overachieving.